Hey, and good morning. I'm Frank Spillers with Rural Community Solutions TV live stream. And today we're going to be talking to Don Macke. Don is the Vice President of E2 Entrepreneurial Ecosystems. We're going to be following up our conversation that we started in September, not only about what has he learned from the COVID experience of 2020 and where are communities now, but what do we really need to do to gain into 2021? So stay tuned. We'll be right back with Don and Rural Community Solutions. Picture, if you will, the pure, raw prairie. No wires, no fences, no roads, not even a farmhouse. No sign of civilization. This is what a person saw that was crossing the prairie in a wagon more than 170 years ago. They jumped off the wagon, looked around, and declared, "This is where I want to settle and build a town. A great place to live and a great place to raise my family." So they took a risk. They built a house made out of the land, planted food to eat, and cared for the land. Then they wrote back to their friends where they came from and described the great opportunity and promise that they have found. They invited who they knew to join them in their discovery, people they had a relationship with, and so they came, family by family, and those families invited others they knew who they wanted to live with within that community. The communities grew because the needs of the families grew, so entrepreneurs started businesses to meet those community needs. Ice houses, broom factories, general stores, and many other types of sole proprietor entrepreneurial businesses started up within the community. All of our communities across this country, all around the world, were started in this way, with a vision of the future and a plan to grow with people. All right, here we go. Let me get everything stopped here. And there's Don. Hi.
Hi, Frank. How you doing? Happy holidays, my friend.
When you don't have a production assistant, you're kind of, going all over. Welcome, and happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah. No, it's upon us. We're looking forward to it, although it's kind of weird today. I think we're going to hit 58 here in Lincoln with blue skies. So the snow is rapidly disappearing from last week's storm.
Well, that's good to know, but not good to know. Well, we need the moisture, so it's just all going to sink in. I stuck some wires around our. We put out a manger for Christmas, and I stick croquet wickets in the ground to hold it down so it doesn't blow, and it all went in. So the ground's not even frozen yet this winter. So hopefully we get some good moisture out of that, and we'll see where we can go with that.
Absolutely.
So we have had a conversation. We haven't talked since. Well, we've talked, but we haven't had you on the show since September. And I'm glad you came back. So thank you for returning. But I want to kind of get updated about what have you seen through 2020, and kind of where are we now, and then what do communities need to do to respond and to build back, as you say, build back that resiliency into their communities?
Yeah, I think 2020 obviously has been a very challenging year for America and its communities and our neighbors. For a long time, I think many rural people, many rural communities felt that COVID was a big city issue, and ultimately COVID knows no boundaries and found its way into rural America and has impacted rural places in a big way. And I think the other thing is this has lasted much longer, so it's really tested our patience, particularly for those who unfortunately maybe in the hospitality industry have lost their jobs and they're struggling to just get by and survive, not lose their apartment or their house. For others, as we know, who have been able to work remotely, while it's been a disruption, they've done fairly well economically. And so I think everyone, as we're on the cusp of 2021, is probably a bit more hopeful now that the vaccines are rolling out, and the hope that this is going to begin to behind us, and maybe by summer for most of us. And so this is the time that communities need to think about their future, and how they're going to rebuild their economy, knowing that we've lost a lot of small businesses, and a lot of our businesses have been damaged as part of this pandemic recession.
Yeah, we're you mentioned the hospitality industry, and we are going to be talking to a couple individuals tomorrow from a research organization that looks at the hospitality industry, and specifically in tourism, of what trends have they found, where's the recovery going, and just kind of like it's really important that we find out where we are before we know where we can build from, and they're going to help us walk through that a little bit with what's been happening in the tourism industry tomorrow. So that'll be a good conversation. So you kind of touched on a little bit about what has happened, what you've looked. What are some of those key trends that you're looking at, that you have seen? The key trends that might have been magnified a little bit more during COVID, or the key trends that now we can start to capitalize upon because of COVID?
Yeah, we've put out our paper on the things that rural communities should be thinking about coming out of the pandemic. Clearly, the role of technology, the importance of broadband, so highlighted during the pandemic as kids were, doing their studies from home. People were working from home. We realized where we have this inequity across the landscape. And, we'll see, but I think many of the habits that have been developed in terms of e-commerce will continue to grow. And for those entrepreneurial ventures that were able to pivot and really get better at it, I've been impressed with just restaurants and how they've gotten so much better with their online ordering and delivery and all of that. That's likely to carry forward. I think there's some others. There was a recent study out of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City that touched on one of the other trends we've been tracking, and that is a rise in nascent or startup entrepreneurship. They put some data behind it, and clearly that's happening. We saw that in the Great Recession. And again, that's important as people maybe decided to leave the city, come back to a rural community, be close to their folks and friends, and have brought with them an entrepreneurial venture. We really need to pay attention to that, because that's a huge opportunity. What we saw in the Great Recession was, while a lot of those kind of necessity entrepreneurs went back when there were good jobs, a lot of them stayed in the entrepreneurial space, contributing to the diversity of our rural economies. We know outsourcing is going to continue. It is a permanent trend. It's accelerating once again. And again, that represents opportunities where people can choose a wider set of communities where they want to live, and also where they can, in fact, maintain employment, maybe with an employer or a contract with an urban firm. So these all represent critically important development opportunities. But as you and I have talked about in the past, it comes down to the community paying attention. And it also means that we've got to create truly welcoming communities, because with these trends will come greater diversity. And nobody wants to be tolerated. People want to be accepted. They don't want to wait 3 generations to, be able to call their hometown home. And our rural communities are going to have to really take stock of themselves and up their game in terms of becoming welcoming communities.
Yeah, we've and this is kind of the I want to just revisit a little bit of the work in Indiana that we have done through you and with you on that. But it's always amazed me that communities say they want to grow, and then all of a sudden you start mentioning a tapestry of individual that could move into their community. A tapestry meaning characteristics, qualities, what do they do? Are they renters? That type of thing. And then all of a sudden they go, well, no, that's not. So it's really a thought process of who do you want to live in your community? And then to get back to really defining, as you put it, that quality of placemaking of what type of community are you going to create? What type of environment are you going to create that will invite people to move in rather than just hope that haphazardly somebody moves?
Yeah, and I think there's another trend, Frank, that we touched on with our joint work in Northwest Missouri. And right now, we're doing a little bit of pro bono work with Mosaic Healthcare Systems in Northwest Missouri around retiree-led development. And I think this is a tidal wave with retiring boomers. 10,000 a day, going to continue for 3 decades. Maybe upwards to a third of them are going to relocate from cities to smaller cities, rural communities. And it all is being driven by, number one, cost of housing. So, somebody living in St. Louis can sell that house that maybe they bought, in the low couple of $100,000s. It's now worth $800,000. Sell that, move to a community like Albion, Missouri, that you worked with, and buy a fixer-upper, put some money into it, and still put a big chunk away for retirement. And this is particularly important for retirees who maybe haven't managed to put enough away for retirement. How they parlay that urban real estate. And again, this is another group that is going to bring a broader set of characteristics, values, and orientations. That's both a huge opportunity, but it's going to require our communities to embrace them where they're at on equal footing if we want to take advantage of this huge urban to rural migration of younger, active, mobile boomers.
Well, and that goes, I mean, what you just talked about with the retirees, all of a sudden just really made me realize that it's not just the young person or the millennial or whatever age group of the younger person in the workforce you're looking at, that those folks are choosing what community to live with. But you have the extended family that you can offer also if you really extend on into retirement services, because retirees, as I know, we want to live around our grandchildren.
Right.
We want to watch them grow up. And so if a person as an entrepreneur or a teleworker chooses that rural community, that other community, or that community really needs to start broadening out is, what type of extended family does that person have for multi-generational inviting into their community? That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, a great example is just in my own family. My brother Jerry, he's 5 years older, spent his whole career, in Kansas City and then Sacramento, back to Kansas City. One of his daughters settled in a rural community kind of north and west of Des Moines. Then her sister moved there with her family, and then Jerry moved there. Again, for your very point, to be close to family, but they all brought, their skills, their talents, their wealth to that rural community. And these are powerful magnets. And, for my brother Jerry, again, parlaying, real estate value in a place like Kansas City into a more rural community, that gave him added cash for his retirement. And that's hugely important. So the more we look at that trend, the more we believe it's not just people moving to affluent places like Steamboat Springs or Aspen. I mean, that's, they're drawing their folks too, but it's also much smaller rural communities because of the differential in cost of living, congestion, perceptions about crime and safety, those kinds of considerations.
So let's talk about a community. What do they need to do right now to start getting ready? I mean, they have been living day to day during COVID, trying to keep their restaurants open, trying to keep their main streets open, just working with that economy almost on a crisis type basis of day to day of what's in front of me. Now, as we were talking about the vaccines out, people are a little bit more hopeful. There is light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. What do communities need to do to start getting ready, or even to get ready? Because I think now's the time they need to do it, is to get ready for full-fledged openings again.
Well, first of all, recognize that there's pent-up demand. Americans have been saving at record rates. They've been holding off making decisions as they just kind of weather this pandemic. And so, if we look at some of the leading economists, Paul Krugman, for example, they're saying we're going to see a really rapid expansion as all that pent-up demand comes back into the economy, into our society, as healthcare allows us to kind of get past the risks of COVID. So I think for the community, it's like everything else we do. We should pull together some of our development stakeholders, form that task force, and really begin to spend time with what are these trends and what do they mean, and also maybe do some mapping in their community around the fact that chances are they've already got some of this activity. We did that in Klamath Falls in South Central Oregon, where we sense that Klamath Falls was one of the next best places as Bend and Medford were filling up as people were moving out of the Bay Area and Seattle into rural Oregon. And lo and behold, as they did that mapping, they found that, yes, people were beginning to come in, because the fact is, it might the median house price in San Francisco is $1.4 million. In Bend, Oregon, it's now approaching $1 million. But in Klamath Falls, you can buy a pretty good property for a couple of $100,000, put another 50 in it, and have an amazing home. And so they did that mapping, and they started talking to those folks to find out, why did they come? How were they making a living? Because not all of them were retired. Many of them were relocating their business or career with them. And then begin to say, okay, what are the assets we have? And I think there's hard assets like, a good cafe, a bakery, all of those kinds of things, which maybe have been stressed during the pandemic, that we're going to have to find new owners for, or help existing owners refinance so they can get up and going again. But also those soft things like a welcoming culture. And so this is the time to put that group together to begin to do some of this backgrounding. I know you work with Esri's Tapestry household data. There's some tools out there that can help them understand what they have. But chances are, some of this is already happening. And we could learn a lot by just talking to the people, whether that's our own kids, somebody who's never lived in the community. Start talking to them about why they've come, what have they found, what do they like, what do they don't like, and use that to inform strategy.
Yeah, that conversation, that perception is almost more important. Well, I shouldn't say that, but that perception and what we have found working with you is you do that chart book. So that gives hard data, the qualitative research. And then we come in behind that and we get the perception of the qualitative research and put that together. And a lot of times it doesn't match, but it does build on each other to help clarify where that research is and why those numbers are the way they are. And that's really important. So should communities start that process now? I mean, finding out where they are and like you said, talking to those folks, and what's the best way that they can do that, and what's the best tool that they can do that with?
Well, to your first question, absolutely. Now is the time. I mean, it's the old adage, when is the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago, when is the next best time? Now. And so now is the time, even though we're still in the midst of this. With the COVID restrictions we have, a lot of this work can be done in a very safe way. And so take advantage of the current environment, as rough as it is, to get your act together, get informed, begin to figure out what you need to do. Because as the pandemic allows us to kind of open up, as the economy hopefully will come roaring back, there's a whole set of decisions that are going to be made, and you kind of want to be with that curve, and you want to have a strategy. And there's important things. We know when people are thinking about relocating, they kind of pick a part of the country, and maybe that's where they grew up, maybe not. And then they get on the, World Wide Web, and they start doing research about communities, and they begin to formulate an opinion based on that website. So do you have a website that really speaks to people about the kind of quality of life you have? And then based on that research, they'll, jump on a plane, jump in the car, and they'll start visiting communities. And that's where, the work that you and Kim have done, what is that reaction when they're in that cafe and you ask the server, well, what do you think about this community? And to begin to get these things together, but also that core asset mapping around, what kind of housing stock do we have? What are our other amenities? These all become important, but these are things we can be doing right now as we start to vaccinate, and hopefully by sometime in the summer, things will really open up and the economy will begin to really come back.
So you've talked a little bit about the economy. What portions, and just real quick, because I know you need to go, but what portion of the economy and what parts of the economy do you see that have really taken a hit, and what other parts of the economy haven't taken that hit?
Well, clearly, the obvious one is hospitality that has, taken the biggest impact, and it's disproportionately affected women who occupy a lot of those jobs in the hospitality, everything from airlines to hotels, on down the line. But there were some unexpected things, while our healthcare system's been stressed dealing with COVID, local, medical practices, dentists, optometrists, health clinics, doctors' offices, they saw a huge contraction in activity as people put off, I did this. I skipped my 6-month dental appointment because I did not want to expose myself or put myself at risk. So some of those sectors that you might think should have really thrived also really got hit. And of course, retail, in-person service businesses beyond cafes were also impacted. But other parts of the economy did really good. I mean, think about our logistics companies like FedEx and Brown, the Postal Service, record activity, and people who are able, like you and I, to work from home. We've had a relatively busy year here at E2 because we already were using Zoom and technology to work with clients. And so again, a major inconvenience, but it did not, affect our ability to continue to do our work. It changed it. And we'll be glad when we can get back to a more normal environment. And so that's why this is such an unequal event where some people have just been devastated, and other parts of the economy, by and large, are actually doing better. Because they've had reduced costs. Think of all those people who were commuting into offices. Now they're working from home. They don't have those commuting costs. They've actually, savings rates are at an all-time high right now. And that money is going to come back into the economy once things open up a bit.
Yeah, I think people they're itching to spend, so to speak.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, no. And they have been. I mean, you think about home improvements have been at an all-time high, so that part of the economy's really benefited, but it's going to come back into hospitality. I mean, my wife and I were talking about one of the first things we're going to do when we can, because it's been January since I've been to a restaurant. I can't wait to go to a restaurant and have a meal.
Yeah. Yep. And not takeout.
We do a lot of that because we try to support our local cafes that way, where all of our meals over the holidays are from our favorite cafes. And so that's kind of our commitment, is we're going to really support them during the holidays. And so we're going to be doing a lot of takeout.
Oh, good for you. Good. That's a great idea, actually.
Well, it's Jenny's. It's my wife's idea, but we're all on board. Sounds good.
That's right. And no cooking. Yay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Don, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, how can people find you if they want to go a little bit deeper with you?
Yeah, the easiest way is to just go to our website at energizingentrepreneurs.org. And I know that's a lot of letters, but just think it through. .org. If you do a search, you'll find us. And on our website, you can learn about our newsletter, which is free, our podcast that we do, our national E2 practitioners network, a whole set of resources. So we really recommend that, or you can just email me at don@e2mail.org, and we'll try to help you look at some of these things that we and our partners have been putting together to help communities, open up, recover, and move on to hopefully greater economic and social resiliency.
That's perfect. That's perfect. It's just such a pleasure to be able to work with you and the whole E2 team, and Network Kansas. I mean, it's all about the expansion that you guys are doing, and the inclusivity to really build a rural economy across North America, and that's exciting work. So I'm really looking forward to 2021 at where that can go. So Don, thank you so much for coming on again and kind of updating us where the economy is and what rural communities can do. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and it's just such a pleasure to be your friend. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. And it's mutual. Keep up the great work. We have great respect for what you and Kim do. So looking forward to working together in 2021.
Here we go. Ready or not, here we come.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks. All right, that Don Macke from Entrepreneurial Ecosystems, E2. Just a deep thinker. We really appreciate him working. Now, come back tomorrow as we're going to be talking about the data in the hospitality industry and where that economy is. And we're going to be talking to a couple of individuals that do this on a day-to-day basis as they work through where the economy is in the hospitality industry. So stay tuned. Come on back tomorrow for Rural Community Solutions TV live stream. We so much appreciate you as we help you design family-friendly, youth-centered places that attract people. Now, those places can be your business, it can be your community, your town, your family, your organization, it can be your church. But the environments attract people. So if you're looking to grow, if you're looking to bring people together and bring people around issues and around what you have to offer. It's the environment that attracts them. So come on back tomorrow. I'm Frank Spillers, and this has been Rural Community Solutions TV live stream. We're live every day, 11:30 a.m. Central Time, right here on Rural Community Solutions TV, on our YouTube channel, Rural Community Solutions, our Facebook page, or you can catch our podcast at anchor.fm/Frank Spillers. It's called Think Like an Entrepreneur, Become a Spark Plug. We hope you enjoyed today's program. Come back tomorrow as we talk about tourism and the hospitality industry. Have a great day. Be safe out